they create some things to make sure that we don't violate certain mitzvot, and sometimes it's at a point that we make sure to ensure that we do a certain mitzvah. So here, there's a discussion of to ensure that we're going to keep the mitzvah of Sukkah. So here comes the Mishnah. A person, he had, you have it, Mr. Haber? Simon, you got it? The Mishnah. Someone's head and the majority of his body was in the sukkah. But his table was in the house. So just imagine you have your house. Good morning. There's a 6:30 minyan and a 7:30 minyan. So if you want to stay for the class, we invite you to stay for the class. So if you want to go to the minyan, it's a little late. So it's up to you. Okay, very good. So if a person, his head and most of his body was in the sukkah, but his table was in his house. So make believe, right outside your kitchen, you have your kitchen table, and you built the sukkah right outside the kitchen. So now the question is it a good sukkah? And you're sitting in your sukkah, right? You have your Chavchet Amaral 28a. You're sitting in your sukkah, but the table is inside your house, inside your kitchen. You didn't put the table inside the sukkah. The table's inside your kitchen. So now the question is, and I'm eating where in the sukkah? So you're going to say, Rabbi, what's the problem? I'm eating in the sukkah. The problem is, are we concerned that maybe you're going to come to eat from the table that's inside the house? Maybe if you're going to eat in the kitchen, which is inside the house, and not outside the house in the sukkah. So the language of the Mishnah is whether it's pasul. Is this pasul? Is this an invalid sukkah, or is this eating invalid? Meaning, according to Beis Shammai says poslim. Poslim would mean that if it was, let's say, the first night of Sukkot, we said the first night of Sukkah, you have to make sure you eat in the sukkah, right? Let's say it comes Chol Hamoed, you don't want to have bread. You don't have bread. You want to have fruit. You want to have a salad outside the sukkah. You're not mandated to go every day of Sukkot to the sukkah if you're not having bread, right? If you're having bread, any day of Sukkot, the holiday Sukkot, you have to have the bread. If you're having a little over an X size of bread, you must eat it in the sukkah. But no one obligates me. Today's Chol Hamoed. No one's obligating me that I have to have bread. I'm on a diet. I don't want to have bread. I don't have bread. I don't have to eat in the sukkah. So I'm not having bread, right? Well, I'm not having bread. I'm not having mizonot. And if you're Sfard, you won't need to eat in the sukkah that day. If you're Ashkenaz, if you're having chicken or meat or fish meal or cheese meal, they're strict. They're more strict, and they'll have it in the sukkah. Maybe some Sfardim are also strict about that. But the bottom line is, according to Beis Shammai, if it was the first night of Sukkot, I ate in the sukkah, but my table was inside the kitchen, inside the house, it's invalid. I got to go back to the sukkah and I got to go eat again. So Beis Shammai poslim, Beis Shammai says it's invalid. Ubeis Hillel machshirin, and Beis Hillel says that it is kosher. It is a kosher eating. Amru lahem Beit Hillel Beis Shammai. Beit Hillel says to Beis Shammai, Lukachai hamaseh. Wasn't that Beit Hillel here means the house of Hillel. But the house of Hillel means the yeshiva of Hillel, so the yeshiva of Beis Shammai. There was Hillel and Shammai. These were the rabbis who opened those yeshivot. And there was the house of Hillel, house of Shammai, which is the members of the yeshiva. So Amalo Beit Hillel Beis Shammai. Look, by the way, this is not a lecture. Anybody wants to have any questions, talk up, feel free to. I like to hear other voices besides myself. So he says, wasn't that the story שהולכו זקני בשמאי וזקני בתהילה לבקה as Rabbi Yochanan ben Achronis. The elder rabbis from the yeshiva Beishamai, and the elder rabbis from the yeshiva Beit Hillel went to visit Rabbi Yochanan ben Achronos, and umotzou shahil roshev rosho v'rupa b'sukkah, and they saw that the rabbi was sitting. He had his head and the majority of the body in the sukkah, but the shulchano b'toch habayit, and the rabbi, his table was like in the kitchen. He had the table in the kitchen, and he ate in the sukkah. Let's say he had the table in the kitchen. So let's say you're sitting at, let's make believe. Let's say this is the table. This is the table, and here is the sukkah, and I'm taking from the table. I'm sitting in the sukkah. My table's here. I'm eating like this, right? So this is outside the sukkah, but I'm sitting in the sukkah. My plate is on the table. It's outside the sukkah, but where is the food going? I'm eating it in the sukkah. So wasn't that the story over there? And the elders of Beis Shammai didn't say anything. So the fact that the elders of Beis Shammai didn't say anything to the rabbi and say, Rabbi, how are you eating that way? It's not kosher. Now, if you see something that's not kosher, you would say something. You don't just say not kosher doesn't just mean the food is not kosher. It's pork. If you're eating if the way you're conducting yourself in the midst of sukkah is not proper, so the rabbis would have said something. But the rabbis of Beis Shammai did not say anything. So the fact that the rabbis of Beis Shammai didn't say anything, so it would seem that they changed their mind. That they, maybe if we ask, there wasn't a time period that the rabbis of Beis Shammai said that it's not good, it's not a good eating. But the fact that subsequently some of the rabbis, the elder rabbis went to visit this other rabbi, and the other rabbi was conducting himself in such a fashion, and they did not say anything, wouldn't that be a proof that the rabbi changed their mind? By the way, rabbis sometimes change their mind. There is such a phenomenon. It's not that, if they came to a certain conclusion, and then later on, if they see otherwise, they're honest. They're honest. There are people in this world, in Washington, a lot of times you don't find a senator changing his mind on a very rare. The only time they find them changing a mind is it's for their political benefit. You find they change their mind. But that you can have a debate, and they open up the debate with one position, and they change their mind as a result of the debate. You don't see that in Washington because they have. Because many times not all the members of Washington are looking for the truth. But when people are Torah, you're looking for the truth. Sometimes they change their mind. So the fact that they didn't say anything would seem that they're condoning this activity, and it's appropriate to have your table right here, and I'm sitting in the sukkah. So, and we're not afraid that I'm going to come to forget and eat outside stick my head outside and come to eat outside the sukkah. So Amr Lehem Beis Shammai. So what happened? So Amr Lehem Beis Shammai. So the Beis Shammai says back, you think that was the story over there? You're under the impression that was the story that they both Beis Shammai's elders and Beit Hillel elders visited the rabbi and they didn't say anything to him? No. You're making a mistake. They did say something to him. They did go visit him. It's true that rabbi was acting like Beit Hillel's opinion. He could go ahead and have the table outside. You're inside. It's good enough as long as you're inside. And you know what? They did tell him. You didn't get the full report. Misham Rayat Avheim Onmulo. The rabbis of Beis Shammai said to Rabbi Yochanan ben Achronis, who was eating in such a fashion, if that's the way you always conduct yourself, every year you set up your sukkah right outside your kitchen, right outside, and you keep your table, and you have your table there, and you're sitting in your sukkah. Lo kayamtam mitzvah sukkah miyamech. You never fulfilled the mitzvah of sukkah. The Beis Shammai's people told him, you never fulfilled the mitzvah of sukkah. Why didn't you fulfill the mitzvah of sukkah? Because you violated the terms of how you're supposed to be eating in the sukkah. You're supposed to have your table in the sukkah. your table was not in the sukkah, and therefore you never filled the mitzvah. So now the obvious question is, what do you mean you never filled the mitzvah? You ate it, he ate in the sukkah, right? So now the point is like this. Number one, at least on a rabbinic level, the rabbi said this is not a kosher sukkah. The rabbi said a sukkah that your table is outside and your inside is not kosher. So therefore, on a rabbinic level, you never filled the mitzvah sukkah. Because the rabbi said that sukkah is invalid. There could be a concept that the rabbi said on a rabbinic level, you can't use this. You see, there's a question. Is let's say somebody, if you steal something that belongs, you steal someone else's certain item and you do a mitzvah with it. So the question is, do you get and you did a mitzvah, do you get credit on a Torah? You don't get credit. Is that rabbinically it's no good? Or even on a Torah level, you did a mitzvah with something that's stolen, it's no good. So sometimes there's a concept that something on a Torah level might work, but on a rabbinic level it doesn't work. So here we're saying at least on a rabbinic level, you never filled the mitzvah. And some say, there are some commentaries that say, Tosfos says, that once the rabbis say, the Torah says, don't turn away from what the rabbis tell you, how to fulfill a mitzvah. And some understand that therefore, if the rabbi says, this is the way you have to do the mitzvah, your table has to be in the sukkah. So if you did not follow it, so then even on the Torah level, you did not follow the mitzvah. That's like a interesting idea, even though it's a rabbinic law. But sometimes there are those that explain that the rabbinic laws sometimes have a power to actually affect that you don't even fill the mitzvah on a Torah level. That could be another understanding. But the question is, what does he mean when he says you have not fulfilled the mitzvah ever? But they were in the sukkah, except the table was outside. But since they did not follow the way the rabbi said how to do the mitzvah, so there are those that learn that you did not fulfill the mitzvah on a Torah level, and the reason for that would be because the Torah says follow what the rabbis say, and the rabbi said this is how you do it. So you didn't follow what the rabbi says, so you don't get credit on a Torah level. Others say it doesn't mean you didn't get credit on a Torah level. It means you did not get on a rabbinic level. You did not follow the rabbis the way they said you're supposed to go ahead and perform it. Okay, just to bring Max up to date. Max, we're on the Mishnah on Chavchet Amar Aleph 28a, in the middle of the Mishnah. Now comes the Mishnah. Noshim va'avodim uktanim. Women, slaves here means non-Jewish people that were sold to Jews, and they became an Evet Kanani. They would go to the mikveh. The men would have a brit milah, and they would be obligated in mitzvot like a morning, welcome back. And they would be obligated in mitzvot like a woman. So this Eved, or the women, were minors, Keturim in a sukkah. We're going to see what age minors we're talking about. They're exempt from the sukkah. A lady has no obligation to eat in a sukkah. But same way she has no obligation to take a lulav and a throw. But if she goes ahead and she goes to the sukkah, right? If someone's wife or sister or mother goes to the sukkah, they get a mitzvah. It's a mitzvah for a woman to go to the sukkah, but it's a mitzvah that she's not obligated to do. She's totally exempt. If she goes there, she will get a mitzvah. And depends if you're Ashkenaz or Sfard, it's whether the woman, when she goes to the sukkah, will she say a bracha on the eating of the sukkah. A Sephardi woman, she goes to the sukkah, she gets a mitzvah, but she does not say a bracha on her eating. Let's say she's going to have a nice deli sandwich, right? And it's Sukkot, and it's Chalamoid, her husband's not there to say the bracha leishev b'sukkah. She doesn't say a bracha leishev b'sukkah. Why doesn't she say a bracha leishev b'sukkah? Because the bracha said Asher ki l'shalom mitzvotav v'tzivonu, and you commanded us, but she's not commanded to say in the sukkah. It's a time-bound mitzvah that she's exempt from, so she wouldn't say tzivonu. However, if you're Ashkenaz, an Ashkenaz woman goes to the sukkah, the same, she will say the bracha tzivonu, because it's referring to the whole Jewish community were commanded. She would say the bracha. There was a story that I was once in Woodridge, New York, upstate New York. And I told the story before, maybe, but for some people, they haven't heard the story before. And I was in the sukkah, where the pizza shop had a sukkah, and a neighbor, someone from my neighborhood happened to be there with his wife in the sukkah. And he asked me, Rabbi, maybe you want to share a Dvar Torah in the sukkah. Now, the way his wife was sitting in a part of the sukkah that there was no schach, that was not appropriate part of the sukkah. And he, the man, the husband, was sitting in the part of the sukkah, morning Aaron, that was a proper sukkah, proper kosher. So I said, even though your wife is not obligated to eat in the sukkah, but if she has opportunity in the sukkah, she gets a mitzvah. So let her move closer to the proper place in the sukkah, and she'll get a mitzvah. So that was the Dvar Torah that I told them back then. We should encourage the women to go to the sukkah, especially today. People have this. You live in a house. Your sukkah is right outside the. It's an easy mitzvah, and and it's a beautiful thing. Every mitzvah that the woman does, even if she's not obligated, there's only like maybe 2 mitzvot. There's very few mitzvot that we say a woman should not do when she's not obligated. Like tefillin, she's not supposed to do. Putting on a talit, she doesn't do. But besides that, in general, most of the other mitzvot that she's exempt from, we will encourage, and it's a beautiful thing. It's a beautiful thing, a lady to take a lulav and etrog on Sukkot. She doesn't have to, but she'll get credit for doing something that she's not obligated to do. Okay, life is not always about doing what you have to do. Sometimes it's and also on the contrary, it shows a love for a mitzvah. And you go in and you do something you don't need to do. And also, maybe it's a good inspiration for the children watching and so on and so forth. Okay, so we say women are potter from sukkah. Avodim are exempt from sukkah. And ketanim are exempt from sukkah. Now, when we say exempt from sukkah, on a Torah level, children, boys that are under bar mitzvah, are exempt from the mitzvah of sukkah. They're under 13. But on a rabbinic level, it says if he's at an age that he does not need it, that he's not so dependent on his mother. We're going to see the Gemara will discuss what age are we referring to. So katan she'ena sarach li'imo chayav b'sukkah. A child, you have it, Mr. Bitesh? 28a. A child that is not a constant need of his mother, he will be chayav in sukkah. We train the child at a very young age. Sukkah seems to be one of those mitzvot, and it could be there's more Gemaras in the closet if you want to take out. One of those mitzvot that we train the children even earlier than the normal age of training. We are on 28a3. So he's obligated, that child is obligated in the mitzvah of sukkah. I mean, in general, we train children. There's something called the mitzvah of chinuch. You got to train the children to do mitzvah. We train the children. The children put on tzitzit at a certain age. They do other mitzvot at a certain age. They pray at a certain age. We train them. That should be in training, so that when it's time for them when they become bar mitzvah, when they become 13, they're ready into it. They already have been doing it, and therefore they'll be able to easily be successful. We got it. Rabbis are here to help set people up. People set their children up in business, right? I want to make sure the children should make it, right? If they set your children up, hey, is that chair comfortable? You're sitting, you're right. Yeah. Sorry, it doesn't have those. You have to set your children up for success as a Jew. Now, how do you set your children up as a success as Jew? You train them, and the rabbis created obligations. You have to train the child. You don't just say, okay, when you become 13, then you wake up at 13 and you don't train them. It's going to be very difficult for him or her to be where they need to be. So, katan she'ena sarach li'imo chayav b'sukkah. The rabbinic obligation to do the mitzvah of sukkah. Okay. Maisa, now we're going to see an amazing stringency, how far this responsibility of training a child, how early could that be? Now, we just said that the age is when he does not need his mother, meaning a little baby, a little child, a 1-year-old, 2-year-old, 3-year-old, they're constantly in need of their their mother. But we're going to find that Beis Shammai had a much more strict opinion. He look at this story. Mai said there was a story. V'yalda kalato shel Shammai hazaken. The daughter-in-law of Shammai hazaken, the daughter-in-law of the famous Shammai, gave birth. Mazel tov. They gave birth. Mabruk. They gave birth to a baby boy. Upichet et hamaziva. And he removed some of the ceiling that was on top, some of the ceiling that was on top of the bed of the child, of the crib of the child. And he put schach on top of the area where the baby's bed was, katan, because he wanted the child to sit in the sukkah. Now we said, there's a minimum measurement for a sukkah. The minimum measurement for a sukkah is 7 tvachim by 7 tvachim wide, 10 tvachim high, which 7 tvachim is about, let's say, 25 inches. 25 inches by 25 inches is a very small, what is this space over here? A little more than 25 inches. This is about 30 inches. So you could have, technically, if you have this space and you have 4 walls and you put schach, it might be an area for a kosher sukkah. So he wanted to make sure that the child should be in a sukkah. So what did he do? So let's say the ceiling that was underneath, the ceiling that was underneath, he removed the ceiling, threw some bamboo sticks or whatever, some branches over there. Now he got a kosher sukkah for his baby. That was, and obviously we do not hold that way. We don't require that you need to go ahead and, right, Mr. Batesh, the baby does not have to sit in the sukkah. But that's Beis Shammai. We'll see maybe more and more in the Gemara about where does Beis Shammai get his opinion from. This responsibility of the baby going into the baby being covered by schach. Okay, so now the Gemara is going to explain how do we know that women are potter from the midst of sukkah. So the Gemara says, "Menahani mile." What is the source that women avodim are exempt from sukkah? Now the Gemara is going to obviously, we'll ask the question, what do you mean, how do we know women are exempt from sukkah? We have a general rule. What's the general rule, everybody? A time-bound mitzvah, like Adam says. See, I want to hear other voices. I told you, I want to hear other voices besides myself. A time-bound mitzvah, in general, women are patur. Now, there are many exceptions to the rule. Kiddush on Shabbat is a time-bound mitzvah. Women have an obligation of Kiddush on Shabbat. And we have many rabbinic mitzvot that are time-bound that women are obligated. Hearing the Megillah is a time-bound mitzvah. Lighting Hanukkah candles. My mother's a widow. She has to light Hanukkah candles. When my father was alive, my father lived. My father's not alive. She has to light Hanukkah candles. She's obligated to light Hanukkah candles. So she's obligated, even though it's a time-bound mitzvah. So any time women are obligated in time-bound mitzvot, you have to ask the question, good morning, Mark, why is the woman obligated in that time-bound mitzvah? But the general law is, morning, Mark.
Morning, Rabbi.
Morning. The general law is that women are exempt from time-bound mitzvot. So the obvious question the Gemara is going to say is going to have to ask, what are we asking for the source of why women are exempt from the mitzvah of Sukkah? The reason why women are exempt from the mitzvah of Sukkah, because the general rule that a time-bound mitzvah, women are exempt. So what do we need to look for a source when we have that source? Source is S-O-U, not S-A-U, okay? We already have the source. Okay, but let's see how the Gemara is going to discuss the issue. Menahani mili, the Tana Rabbana. It says, Ezra, it says in the pasuk, it talks about every Jew should go ahead, and every native Jew, every Jew from birth has a mitzvah to go ahead and sit in the sukkah, and we also say that converts also have to sit in the sukkah. It says Kol Ezra, that the Jewish person has to sit in the sukkah. Zeh Ezra. If the pasuk would say the word Ezra, every Jew, So that the word ezrach would mean both men and women are obligated to go ahead and say ezrach. Ezrach is like another way to refer to Jew. So, every ezrach would mean if you say kol ezrach, every Jew has to sit in the sukkah. So that the word ezrach would imply both men and both women. But the fact that it says ha ezrach, the ezrach, a specific Jew, has to go ahead and sit in the sukkah. So what is the specific Jew coming to say? It's coming to say a man and not a woman. By being specific about there's a certain type of Jew, the Jew has to sit in the sukkah. You're talking about you're coming that hay is coming to exclude the women. That the women do not need to go ahead and sit in the sukkah. But you also said kol ha'ezrach. The word kol is a very inclusive term. Everybody. You're telling me it's not everybody. It's not all Jews. You told me the lady doesn't have to sit in the sukkah. So what is the kol? So kol is coming to tell us the rabot esakatanim. It's coming to include minors. That minors have an obligation to go ahead. We have to make sure that the kids sit in the sukkah. And the Gemara is going to ask, what do you mean? You told me what children are exempt, morning child, from the midst of sukkah. So the Gemara is going to focus in on that last statement regarding minors. In general, minors, when it comes to a mitzvah to be performed, there are very few mitzvot that the Torah obligates children. Because they're children, they're not of age, and the obligation of children will be the obligation on the parent, on the father, let's say, on the father to do something with their child. So we don't find, a child, let's see, even in the midst of learning Torah, the child doesn't have an obligation to learn Torah on a Torah level when he's under bar mitzvah. The father has a biblical mitzvah to teach Torah to his child when he's young. When the Gemara said, when the child starts talking, you have a mitzvah to teach your son Torah. There's a mitzvah to bring a child to Hakel every 7th year. By the holiday of Sukkot, by Chalamoid, you bring your children. But there's certain mitzvot that apply to children. But generally, children are exempt from mitzvot. If they're on a Torah level, like we said, most of the mitzvot that children have to do is training. And here we're saying we have a pasuk that says that children have to be in a sukkah. This is the Gemara is going to address this later on. We know on a Torah level, we hold the halakha on a Torah level, child is exempt from sukkah, but except you have a mitzvah to train the child on a rabbinic level. But here we have a pasuk that seems to indicate a biblical responsibility for the child to be in the sukkah. So now the Gemara is going to focus regarding the women. Omama, ha'ezrach. You told me ha'ezrach. By the way, we are now on 28a4. You told me ha'ezrach. L'rabot et hanashim. You told me that we have a braita. You told me ha'ezrach l'hotzi es hanashim. You told me that the word ha, the hey, the ezrach is saying it's like saying the certain Jew has to eat in the sukkah, the man, and not the woman. Lememra, what does that seem to indicate? If I would have said the word ezrach without the word the ezrach bein nashim bein gavri mashma would imply both men and both women. If you just say ezrach b'Yisrael, the Jew has to eat in the sukkah. But now that you said the Jew, you're being very specific. Now, we have a lawyer in here, right? You're being very specific. When you're being specific, you're referring to... Now, so the Gemara Vatanya, who we learned in a Braita later on, regarding Yom Kippur. What does it say by Yom Kippur? It says, ha'ezrach. It also says the word, when the Torah talks about fasting on Yom Kippur, it says the ezrach. And we say the ezrach over there, when it says the hey, we say l'rabot et hanashim hazrachiyot shechayav b'inui, that the women, the Jewish women, have to go ahead and fast on Yom Kippur. So we see alma ezrach gavrei mashma. So we see that the word Ezrach by itself implies men, and the ha-Ezrach, the hey, the extra hey, comes to include women. So the Gemara is saying we're going in two different directions. What does the word Ezrach mean? Refers when it says Ezrach, the Jew. Does Ezrach the Jew, the native Jew, the born Jew, what does the word Ezrach mean? Does it include women? The word Ezrach. Is it a more general term that includes women? And in order to exclude the women, you need the hey to exclude the women. Or the word Ezrach does not include women, and the only way you know women is only because you need the hey to include women. So is the hey coming to include women? Is the hey coming to exclude women? So how is it we have a same word and we're using the same word in two different directions? When it comes to Sukkah, right, Adam, we say ha-Ezrach, the hey, the Ezrach is excluding women. And when it comes to Yom Kippur, we say ha-Ezrach is including women. We're going opposite directions. We have to be consistent. That is the Gemara's question. Is it clear, everybody? To everyone, the Gemara's question? Okay, we got a lot of good shakes on that one. Okay, so Amar Rabbah. So Rabbah says, Hilchot Anenu. Rabbah says, you're right. The pasuk is not from the actual pasuk. This doesn't make sense to go two different directions. It's either this way, either that way. Except there's a halacha l'Moshe Sinai. There's certain halachot. There's a halacha that says that the law by this case is a certain thing. And when the Gemara says we're taking in a certain direction, the Gemara doesn't mean that that's the Torah way to understand the pasuk. Sometimes, when there's a certain law, sometimes you like to see it alluded to in the pasuk. So when it says that the word means this over here, it means that the pasuk is alluding to this understanding, but not that is the meaning of the pasuk. Meaning the pasuk means a, but we also, even though the pasuk means a, and you will not, meaning the pasuk itself, we can't read it that way. We can't learn both laws from the pasuk itself, because one pasuk is clearly telling us one direction, and one pasuk is another direction. But rather, we're gonna have a special halacha l'Moshe Sinai, like we have the Torah when Moshe Rabbeinu was in the mountain for 40 days and 40 nights. Hashem told him the laws. He explained to him what was Moshe Rabbeinu doing there for 40 days, 40 nights. Hashem was explaining to him how you perform the mitzvah, right? The Torah says you put your tefillin on your hand, on your head. Which part of your head? Which part of your hand you have to put your tefillin on, right? So that was expounded and explained. And then when the Torah says, you have to sit in a sukkah, so things were explained. How you sit in a sukkah. Well, the Torah, who sits in the sukkah? Is it including women, not including women? Well, Yom Kippur and so on and so forth. Who is it? Men? Is it women are included, not women? So that was explained, and therefore, the reason why the law is so and so is not necessary. It's from the explanation of the halacha l'Moshe Sinai. So one of these two, you could figure out from the pasuk itself. One of these two, the pasuk itself is clearly excluding or including women, and the other one, the law is only based on the halacha, on the explanation that was given at Sinai for that law. So and now let's see. The Gemara is going to try. We're going to have more elaboration of this in the Gemara. Hi kra, v'hai hilchata. Which pasuk is teaching us, is telling us the law? Which pasuk is the one telling us the law? And which pasuk, good morning, is that you need to come on to the halacha l'Moshe Sinai that tells us we don't go that way? That the halacha l'Moshe Sinai says, don't take the implication of the verse, but rather there's a different halacha going on over here. Remember, we have the same word, and we're come to two different conclusions. The word ha'ezrach, but when it comes to Yom Kippur, we're saying women are included. When it comes to Sukkah, they're not included. Only one, it only can go one direction. There's only really one interpretation of the word ha'ezrach. So one of them the verse is going to be telling us a certain law, and the other one we're going to need the halacha from Sinai to tell us, don't interpret that pasuk the way you interpret the other ha'ezrach, but rather there's a different translation for the pasuk. The law, the conclusion is the same, and that word is not coming to tell us the similar fashion that it did over there. So there's something that's called the exception. So what is the standard and what is the exception? We want to understand which pasuk is this is the way you're supposed to translate the word ha'ezrach, and which pasuk is the one that you're not supposed that you need the halacha to supersede or to tell us that in this case you don't translate it the way you translate it in the other place. So which one is the verse and which one is the halacha? That's what the Gemara is going to do. Haikra, vehichata. Which one is the verse telling us? Which is the proper translation? And which one is we need the halacha Moshe Sinai? V'su kra lamali. What do we need? Pasuk hilchata lamali. Why do we need a halacha Moshe Sinai? Hasukkah mitzvah seisha magrama. Sukkah is a time-bound mitzvah, and a time-bound mitzvah, we know women are exempt from time-bound mitzvah. So what do we need a pasuk to? Why do we need anything? Why do we need either the pasuk or the halacha to exclude women? They should be excluded from the general rule of a time-bound mitzvah. They're exempt. Stay tuned tomorrow. We're a beautiful crowd, everybody. Thank you all for joining, and have a great day, everybody. By the way, if everybody brings another person, we'll double the crowd tomorrow. Thank you. Yeah, I got it. Thank you.